Howdy everybody, this is Omar, your audio amigo, here today with another regular review. Today we're looking at the highly requested Kefine Delci. It was released in March of this year, 2024, at an MSRP of $75. Kefine themselves are relatively new to the IEM game, but they came out swinging with the Kefine Clanar, a pretty nice affordable planar IEM, and then they followed it up with this. It's a sub-$100 single DD set released into the very crowded sort of $60 to $100 range. Will it stand out in a good way? Let's find out. As always, we'll get started with what's inside the box. Straight away, you'll find the IEMs, and you'll find this nice leatherette case, decent size, pocketable, but maybe a little bit big. Inside the case, you'll find this very nice two-tone cable, and 7 sets of ear tips. I've kind of sandwiched the ones that come stock on the IEM in there, but you get small, medium, and large of the wide bore, and then you get small, medium, large, and extra large of the sort of narrower bore. This is a good case with a decent tip selection. I feel like the overall included accessories are pretty solid for $75. Only things I can think to improve of would be, throw in some foam tips and make the cable modular, but at this price range, I think it's a really good accessories package. Let's go on to the cable. I really like this cable. It's got this nice two-tone copper and black 4-wire weave. The wires themselves don't feel overly rubbery. The cable feels nice against the skin. It isn't microphonic. It behaves well. It lays flat. There's nice Kefine branding on the 3.5mm connector, as well as the Delci branding on the Y-split. The chin slider is a bit difficult to slide up and down, but that means that it'll stay in place and put when you need it. The 2-pin connectors have nice metal sleeves on them, and they're clearly labeled right and left. I like this cable. I wouldn't go rushing out to replace this. It's very nice. So moving on to the construction and build quality. These are CNC milled aluminum shells with a nice gunmetal finish on them. You get a couple of vent holes on the bottom, one over by the nozzle and one a little further back. The nozzles have these cool patterned metal filters to them that are slightly recessed, so that'll be nice. The shape of the IEM has no real hard edges, bulges, or protrusions. They feel very solid in the hands. They're actually a lot lighter than I was expecting, considering that they're full metal. They feel nice and sturdy. They feel pretty durable overall. The only quality control issues I've seen on these in the short time they've been out is the sticker comes off, which you can just stick right back on. I think these will hold up fairly well over time, all things considered. So let's pull up the specifications. So these are a single 10mm dynamic with a polyurethane diaphragm with a diamond-like carbon coating added for rigidity while maintaining lightness. Even though they're aluminum, the weight is right around 5 grams per shell, which shouldn't be an issue in terms of comfort. The nozzle is a bit on the larger side, but we'll see if that's an issue later. In terms of amplification, the impedance sensitivity combo here means you shouldn't need an external amp to drive these, which is always great to see. But now it's time for the cool wall. So, I don't feel like Kefine really knocks it out of the park here. Both of their IEMs, the Delci and the Clanar, have the sort of same design language with the rounded metal shells with the Kefine logo stuck in the center. It's good for brand identity. It means you see this and you immediately go, yeah, it's a Kefine product. But overall, I don't think that really does anything for looking particularly cool or interesting. I'm going to stick these in bland. I think they're fairly regular looking. There's nothing special about them. But nobody cares what I think. Y'all want to see what the Council of Ladies has to say. So let's see. So right off the bat, they're not pretty. Only a couple of mehs among the sea of not pretties. So that means that I'm not expecting this to earn any compliments, and they don't. So there's that. Now for their thoughts. Looks like a K-cup is a new one for me. I haven't seen that before online when describing these. Utilitarian makes sense though. Yeah, the ladies are not a fan of the Delci's looks. Let's go to comfort. The shells being so small and lightweight meant that I really didn't have any problems with that in my ears. They are kind of flat and they are contoured well, so they sat very close to the inside of my ear and they felt very flat against the outside of my ear. They didn't feel super bulky. That said, I do wish the nozzles were a little bit longer or that they had some more contouring here, like a little cutout to help the nozzle get deeper. I tend to prefer a deeper fit, and these fit so well in the cavity of my outer ear that it felt a little odd not to push them in deeper. I had to to put these in, I had to rotate and push and push and push and push and get them in as deep as possible. It wasn't a real problem. It just took a little longer to fit them than I normally would like. As far as my wife was concerned, these were mostly fine. The larger-ish diameter of the nozzle combined with the shallower insertion depth actually worked pretty well for her. But she did find she could only wear these for around 2 hours before she felt like she needed to rest her ears. I think it's that larger nozzle diameter that eventually led to the fatigue. She gave this a pass on the tiny ears test, but be aware that it's sort of a conditional pass. You might need to take them out after an hour or two, depending on the size of your ear canal. All right, sound quality. As usual, we get started with the bass response. This set is a lot of fun in the bass. It's got great sub-bass extension with a really fun-sounding mid-bass boost. Lil Jon's Get Low is super fun to listen to here. All those bass drops are nice and prominent. My only real criticism is that some of the hits are maybe a little bit softer than I would like. What I mean by soft is some of these deeper notes, when the bass note hits, they sort of reverberate a little bit. They generate semitones and harmonics that our brains interpret as that rumbly, echoey sound that you hear with like a big car subwoofer or a home subwoofer as the note decays. This lacks a little bit of that fine controlled rumble on the tail end of some notes. It decays a little bit quicker than I would like, and as a result, some of the bass drops sound a little bit softer on the rumble compared to some other sets. That's what I mean by soft. That's a nitpick though. This is more than enough bass to have a great time. The quality is also pretty good. Some folks will find this kind of bass fatiguing, but it's not what I would call a true bass headset. The bass guitars and kick drums are fine. The iconic John Bonham kick drum intro from Led Zeppelin's When the Levee Breaks sounds authoritative and powerful, as does the bass guitar. No issue with those here. Bass presentation is overall really good. Mid-range. So, this being a single DD set, having fun levels of mid-bass, it shouldn't be a surprise that the mids are ever so slightly warmed up. Best example I could find, Cousin Dupree by Steely Dan sounds a tiny bit muffled to me with the guitar, bass, and organ all in the same range. They're all in the same like lower mids area. Despite that, you can still separate the instruments. You can sit here and you can be like, okay, that's the bass, okay, that's the organ, okay, that's the guitar, and you can still separate them out, but it's a little less clear than I would like. I wouldn't call this muddy. This is not a muddy set. I've heard muddy sets. This is not one of them. This is just, like I said, less clear than I would like, particularly on this track. Thankfully, the sub-bass boost doesn't impact female vocals in a super negative way. They are a little bit warmed up in the lower register, which, like I said, will either help or hurt certain artists. Belinda Carlisle's Heaven is a Place on Earth. Her voice has that very airy tonality that she's known for here. The set recreates that. But when she hits those lower notes, this set gives her a little bit of a darker tonality that I honestly think makes the wide range of her voice pop a little more. It makes it sound a bit more impressive. Some genres like J-pop or K-pop will come off a little bit worse here. But like I like to say, this won't outright ruin those songs. So to my ears, this is a slightly recessed, slightly warmed up mid-range presentation, but it's still clear and it is not warmed up in a horrible or music ruining way. So, upper mids and treble. There's an ever so slight boost to the upper mids and treble. I feel like it balances out the bass enough so that this set doesn't come off completely dark or warm. It's still got the warm sound to it, but I would say this is more of a warm V-shape compared to some of the other sets I've reviewed recently. There's a good amount of detail and good sparkle up here. Nothing super crazy, but it's a very nice overall upper mids and treble set. I can play Deadmau5's Strobe without having to worry about fatigue. All the frequencies come through just lovely. Same holds true for Blondie's Heart of Glass. The upper harmonics on both the cymbals and Debbie Harry's voice sounds very clean, very proper. No unnatural tonality or overemphasized nature to the harmonics. If I had to nitpick, and I do, the cymbals are maybe a little bit slow on the decay. There's some extra washiness on some of the cymbal hits, making them sound a little bit unnatural compared to what I prefer. But again, nitpick. Overall, the upper mids and treble are very well done for a single DD set, and I think they're good. As far as technicalities go, in my opinion, for a single DD set, I think they're pretty good. As I mentioned before, the low end can be a bit soft at times, but it doesn't really mean that you lose out on a ton of detail, especially if you turn up the volume just a little bit. Y'all know I love my jazz, so we're going to use Dolphin Dance, the version by Ahmad Jamal and his trio. Listen specifically for Jamil Nasser in the left ear. He has a lot of great moments where his bass has ringing, buzzing strings, as well as some good finger slides and finger moments with it. Very well done on this set. On the opposite end of the spectrum, let's go with the Jackson 5 and I Want You Back. Specifically, listen to the percussion. You got the claps in the center, the cymbals in the right ear, the tambourine in the left ear. They're all great to listen to because every performer has little subtle nuances and individual things that they're doing. It's overall good. Is this the most detailed set in the world or at this price range? No, but considering the sub-bass boost they pulled off here, I don't think that you really lose anything major in the technicalities either. I think it's very well done for a single DD set. So, stereo separation. I went with my usual Mediterranean Sundance test, and this passed. Guitarists are nice and far apart. Audience has plenty of room in the middle. No claustrophobic sound here. The perceived 3D soundstage on this set is about average for this price point. The tuning can add a little bit of depth when the mix calls for it. Take 5 by the Dave Brubeck Quartet lets you place all 4 members around yourself really easily. Bass is behind you, saxophone right in front, drums and the piano in opposite ears. Overall, stereo separation on this is great. Soundstage is average to slightly above average for this price range, I would say. So, time for some comparisons. Before we do that, though, I'd like to bring out the 7 Hz Cross-Critical 02 that I have here, okay? And I'm not saying it's a direct comparison, but the reason I brought up the 02 is because I feel like the Delci is the most direct upgrade to the 02 that I've heard in this price range. These two are extremely close in terms of overall tuning. They're both, warm V shapes, bass boost, slightly recessed mids, maybe lacking a little bit of detail on the top. Basically, the differences are the Delci has a much nicer cable, an all-metal build, better accessories, it comes with a case, and it has a better driver. It costs 3 times as much as the 02, but I brought it out because if you're watching this and you have a 02 and you love the 02 and you basically want something that sounds exactly like it but is higher quality and maybe sounds a bit more detailed, grab this. But let's move on to some actual comparisons. We'll get started with the BLON collaboration with Zeos. This is the BLON JoJo. Okay, the JoJo is interesting compared to the Delci because it's essentially a even warmer version of that V-shaped sound that the Delci has. It doesn't come with a case, and the fit on the JoJo can be very hit or miss depending on your ear shape, thanks to that kind of interesting looking design. But overall, I would say if you find the Delci lacking in the bass department, if you want to have that extra fun, if you want to take your party rock into the next level, you can head off on this bizarre adventure instead and you'll be quite happy. Next up, I have another collab, this one with Hawaii Bad Boy. This is the Tripowin Kailua. Okay, this is a 2DD set. Came out sometime last year. These two are very, very close in overall tonality. To my ears, actually, doing comparison listening, the Delci actually sound like a more matured version of the Kailua, which to me was pretty surprising, because the Kailua has a whole extra driver to split the workload. I ended up preferring the sub-bass extension on the Delci, and while the Kailua had a bit more top-end detail, it sounded a bit unnatural compared to the Delci. It just had a little bit of funkiness to the harmonics that I didn't prefer. I actually ended up preferring the Delci. So, yeah, I would say it's a straight upgrade over the Kailua, honestly. But finally, we come to the big elephant in the room, the whole reason that this review has been delayed. This is the brand spanking new Simgot EW300. I'm going to set it right there. So, EW300. It comes with 2 nozzles, 2 different tunings. The silver nozzle is basically the classic Simgot house sound, but toned down for more people. It's warmer, less intense. I quite like it. The gold nozzle, however, is a warmer, bassier V-shape, kind of like the Delci, and I think it's a closer match to the Delci than the silver nozzles. That's what I'll be talking about. I don't think the EW300 is perfect, and we'll elaborate on why in Saturday's video, but I do generally think that it sounds better than the Delci. Specifically, the top end, the cymbals seem to decay that little bit more naturally than the Delci does, And in the mid-range, yes, it's still recessed, but I think it's a little bit easier to separate instruments on busier tracks than it is on the Delci. I do prefer the cable on the Delci, and I do think the case on the Delci is that tiny bit better to me, at least subjectively. But I do think that people who are maybe sensitive to the planar or piezo PZT sound, the slightly more metallic sounding top end, will prefer the more natural DD sounding Delci over the EW300. But for me personally, I think the EW300 is straight up better. I think it's a better value as well. But summing all these up, 02, gateway to the Delci. Similar sound and flavor, a little less overall detail, it's the upgrade. Compared to the JoJo, it's less bassy, a little bit more refined sounding. It's, in my opinion, a straight up better version of the Kailua and a slightly worse version of the EW300 that some people might prefer because of some tonality reasons. Sorry. So that sort of spoils my conclusion a little bit, but I feel like the Delci competes with its peers pretty well. Let's go ahead and throw it up on the Audio Amigo Arbitrary rating scale. It's got good accessories, it's got good build quality, warm V-shaped sound. This is a very well done set. It isn't a detail or resolution beast, but this driver is actually really, really nice, and it handles what you throw at it very well. At $75, it has a lot of competition. I do feel, however, like it can basically hang out with anything at this price range, especially stuff that has a similar tuning. You want something brighter, you look for something brighter. You want something more neutral, you get something more neutral. I feel that this is a bit difficult for me to rank right now, and I feel like the whole reason for that is the sheer existence of the EW300. It's very similar in tuning, and it wins by slight margins in basically every listening test I did. It also comes with a second nozzle that lets you have a completely different tuning if you'd like. It's awkward. If I had done this review when I planned a week ago, or even before then, closer to when it came out, this would 100% be in the "this is brilliant" camp. But because the EW300 is essentially the same price at MSRP, I have to end up putting this in the "I like this" tier. Because I really do like this set. I think it's great. If you own this set, you have an absolute banger. Congratulations, enjoy it. It sounds fantastic. I feel like buying Chi-Fi right now is like buying a brand new laptop in the mid-2000s, something top of the line. You buy it, you have the absolute best thing on the market for roughly about 6 months, and then something else comes out that's lighter, faster, newer, and it's essentially just a better version of what you have at either the same price or slightly lower. And I feel like that's where we are in the Chi-Fi market right now. But I'll talk about that a little bit later in the conclusion. So, would I recommend these? Yeah, I would. I think this is an absolutely fantastic set. If you're sensitive to the sound of piezo or planar drivers, I think that this is probably the best warm V-shaped set in this price bracket. If you're looking for a single DD set specifically, those of you who prefer that configuration, I think this is also fantastic. It comes with great accessories, but I think this works best as a sort of, like I said, step up for something like the 02 or the other warmer budget sets, especially considering the sale price on these. So let's talk about that. The MSRP on these is $75, but basically from the moment it came out, it's been available for $60 and even $50 on some sales. I got these for $50, okay? At $50, I think that this set is an absolute win. The extra $20 for the EW300 might be worth it for most folks. I understand that. But for the more budget-constrained buyer, it's a 40% price increase. And I really don't feel like you're getting a 40% increase in sound quality going to the EW300. It's more like a 5-10% boost. It's noticeable, but is it worth 40% more money, especially if you're very budget constrained? I don't know. It might be a harder pill to swallow, that extra $20 for some people. So yeah, that's essentially my recommendation. At MSRP, I can only recommend it over the EW300 if you're particularly sensitive to the slightly metallic sound of a piezo or planar driver. I'm not sensitive to that. I think it sounds fine. At $50, however, I think that you should be looking into this if you're interested in a warm V-shaped IEM. At $50, I think it's super competitive. I think it absolutely competes or beats anything in that price range for this sort of tuning, and I think it's an amazing value for that. So yeah, On sale, grab it at MSRP. Check out the EW300 instead. But that's going to do it for me. The Chi-Fi market is moving so fast these days. It's really impressive. It's a very exciting time to be in this hobby. The Delci, when it's $50, is a great example of how good sound quality is slowly coming down the price scale to get more and more accessible to more and more people. What this experience has taught me, though, is that my ranking list needs to be fluid. I'm probably going to evaluate the list at the end of each quarter, and if I feel like changes need to be made, I'll publish a bonus video where I'll go over the changes and the reasoning behind them. I'm also going to make a version of the ranking list, like a text version, available to the public with more detailed reasonings and a short blurb serving as a recommendation or not. So stay tuned for that update coming at some point. But for now, that's going to do it. I appreciate all your continued support. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Omar with Audio Amigo Reviews, and I will catch y'all next time.